Entering the chat Monday night, Ben Kindle. I think I appropriately glowed him up, pumped his tires. He just had a standout game, did Ben Kindle.
And now it's time for No Pucks Given with Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Penguin Scoops locker room buzz and straight-up analysis. No fluff, all hockey. Now, here's Dan.
It's 106 miles to Pittsburgh. I've got a full tank of gas and, well, a half pack of cigarettes. It's dark. I'm wearing sunglasses or something like that. I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms, and we'll release this as a podcast. I think it's time to put this travel day to good use and really talk about the players on the bubble, the young players, the veterans who may or may not be on the roster in October. Now, I know there are a few players you're just dying to see on the roster. I see you passing around the screenshots when I give your favorite player a bad grade, and that's the only reason I do it. I mean, not because I'm being honest or because the player only played marginally well. No, that's not why I gave Philip Hallander a C+ a couple of games ago. No. I did it because I don't know anything about hockey, don't you know? Monday night, as we look at all these players fighting for space, Monday was Hallander's first breakout game. The first time he pushed himself beyond his comfort zone. The first time he made an impact on the game. There is a difference between playing good. Hey, listen, he was fine, he was good, he played well, versus making an impact. On Monday, you saw him hold on to the puck, you saw him take it deep, you saw him distribute. His defensive game is naturally solid, so that part really isn't to worry about. But I thought he really elevated that line with Philip Tomasino and Tommy Novak. I don't know that I was enamored with Philip Tomasino's performance, having a night to sleep on it. Novak and Tomasino were fine, and Novak will be on the roster. Tomasino, I don't know. I really don't. I think that decision might rest on other players because he had a very solid game against Detroit a couple of preseason games ago. He was tepid. He had some moments. He played as kind of well as you expect, but he does have to be better because the Penguins team, the depth is better now. He's one guy that I think the coaches and Kyle Dubas and I might disagree on, wherein he makes the roster, and I kind of shake my head and say this player or that player should have made it. That's where Tomasino is. So, I think down in Wilkes-Barre, you might have a Hallander and Tomasino pairing. It really is possible. That's the forwards, at least the young forwards, Bros being in. Entering the chat Monday night, Ben Kindle. I think I appropriately glowed him up, pumped his tires. He just had a standout game, did Ben Kindle. And it wasn't because he scored a goal 3.5 minutes into the game. That actually was largely set up by Ryan Shea. Now, Kindle showed some good finishing ability, kind of widening the stick, creating a greater field or a greater field to shoot. Forcing Gibson to not know where Kindle was going, and Kindle, snapped a good wrister to the glove side, beats a good goalie, John Gibson. Not, even if that moment didn't happen, I still would be saying this morning that Kindle is suddenly a contender to make the team. Because he has played well defensively. You see his hockey IQ, especially in the defensive zone, where he is able to read plays quickly, put himself in between players and steal the puck. He's gritty enough But his skating, now that he's playing more confidently, now that he's kind of just thrown caution to the wind and going for it, his skating has improved a full step. On that goal last night, he beat his defender to the net, outskated him. I don't think we would have seen that from Kindle a week ago, 2 weeks ago, when he was sort of playing timid and just feeling his way through that. Does he make the NHL roster, Dan? I think it is up to him. If he performs as he did Monday, on Wednesday in Buffalo, is it Friday, the last preseason game, Friday at home against Buffalo? Listen, I'm day to day. If he performs that well in the next 2 games, Ben Kindle is a Pittsburgh Penguin on opening night, bar none. They're not going to send him back to junior, not the 11th overall pick, if he's playing this well. I do caution you, before you go buying your Ben Kindle jersey, remember last season, Harrison Brunick was in the exact same spot. And Brunick had a step back over the last couple of days as the intensity, as the game got quicker, as players, NHL players, prepared for the season. Brunick looked, didn't look as good. He looked a little bit overmatched, and the Penguins said the time wasn't right, especially for a defenseman. For a forward, it's a little easier. You can bury him on the 3rd or 4th line and bring him along a little bit more slowly, a little slower. So you have to like his chances based on his trajectory and his path. Leave it there. Just don't get any expectations or you'll probably be disappointed. But if you're like really itching to see him, he's got a chance. Obviously, guys like Anthony Mantha, Justin Brazeau are in the lineup on opening night. Danton Heinen, as we look at some veterans, probably not. It becomes a numbers game. If you want to keep the young players, you can't keep Danton Heinen. Blake Lizotte, easy yes. I don't know why some of you are so down on Blake Lizotte. I don't get it. You have to explain this to me. Here is a scrappy, speedy, 4th-line center who fills that role with aplomb. Not a plum, not an apple, not a pear, but a plum. He does everything you ask of a 4th-line center, chips in a little bit of offense. Actually, he gets kind of streaky. He can chip in a little bit more offense once or twice a season. He'll go on a 5 or 6 game tear. You need guys like him, that speed. Connor Dewar has had a really good preseason. This is one of those bubble players where Dubas and Muse sit down and look at each other. If they purely base it on training camp, you're like, well, he should make it. There's that word, should. Deserves to make it. But given his pedigree, his history, I think they slide him through waivers if the young players prove worthy over the next couple of games. I think he is an undeserving cut, would be Connor Dewar. Kind of the Tomasino I put sort of in that same boat where sure he could play in the NHL. He's going to get you 25 points. Maybe with a hot streak he hits 30, but you begin to weigh the ceiling versus the floor and where you're at with other players. And actually where you're at as an organization. All of that really matters. Ville Koivunen on the roster. Rutger McGroarty will start, I think, on injured reserve, if not long-term injured reserve, but on the roster. Robbie Fabry. Here's another guy who is in danger of being an undeserving cut. Having watched him play center last night, he wasn't as good at center as he has been on the wing. That, I think, was obvious. With the extra defensive responsibilities, it didn't work for me. I would have preferred they keep him on the wing. He's played professionally well. He's had his legs. He's been physical. He's gotten after the puck. If you look at his production over the course of his 9-year career versus, say, Philip Tomasino, Fabry has better production from a bottom six standpoint, and he's more versatile. He can do more things to help you win when he's not scoring. Will they pick up the PTO and lose Tomasino, Dewar in the process? I think I would. I think that's how I would handle it. I don't know if that's how the Penguins are going to handle it. Let me scroll down here. I'm keeping the list handy. I'm not looking at it, at least very long. Anyway, I'm just glancing at it. Tristan Brose is on, and Avery Hayes. That's going to be a tough cut, but nevertheless, he had a good game on Monday, did Hayes. He was part of that Kindle and Koivunen line. He's a good puck getter. He's a good puck retriever, puck pressure guy. Is he indispensable on the NHL roster? No, I think guys like Dewar have outplayed him. So I think Avery Hayes goes back to Wilkes-Barre. What I don't know about Hayes, and I'm sorry to disappoint some of you by saying that, what I don't know about Hayes is if he's reached his ceiling or if he's just getting there. If he needs a bit more of an NHL look, a bit more seasoning, and can further improve. I don't know. I'm interested. That's to say the least. You have to love the underdog, the undrafted underdog who has fought as hard as he has and has risen as far as he has. I just don't think he gets there. Another guy who has actually had a really good training camp who won't make the team is Sam Poulin. Now, I wandered over and talked to Poulin on Monday morning after the morning skate. Here is a guy coming to grips with his career path. You saw the fight in Montreal. He still got a bit of a shiner. It's better, but it's still black and blue. It hasn't reached the yellow stage yet. I don't know if he'll add fighting. He was kind of. He didn't say no. He didn't say yes when I said, well, you're going to look to add dropping the gloves to your repertoire. And he was like, well, if it's there, I'm not going to be looking for it. So I suppose he's not going to go the Bissonnette route, where Bissonnette was an offensive defenseman at one point and realized his path to the show was as a glove-dropping left winger. Hey, whatever gets you there, right? Raphael Harvey-Pinard, I've loved his camp. I think he is on the roster. It's hard to say that. You're like, well, Dan, what about Dewar? I just think Pinard has a little more offense than Dewar, a bit more physicality because he's a little bulkier, a little stockier than Dewar. So when Pinard, their speed very similar, and how they puck pursue and the pressure they can apply, very similar. But Pinard can be a little more physical, a little grittier, and has a bit more offensive pop, I think. So that gives him the edge over Dewar because Harvey-Pinard could jump up to the third line if and when necessary. You don't mind giving him 14 minutes on a particular evening, where Dewar, you probably don't want to give him that much because most nights he's kind of a one-dimensional defense sort of player. And that kind of wraps up the prospects. I did mention Ben Kindle. I've had to do a couple takes. If I haven't mentioned Ben Kindle, I think I did, right? I'm going to repeat it. Because here is a guy in the same situation as Harrison Brunick was last year, inserts himself into the conversation. The team obviously would love to have their 11th overall pick make the squad, and he played, easily played well enough. Both ends of the rink. He really controlled the play in the offensive zone, dishing it to Koivunen, and Koivunen dishing it back to Kindle. They really had a good chemistry going, and the puck pursuit that Kindle has shown is better, and his willingness to go to the net, that wasn't in the scouting report. when all the draftniks did their scouting reports, he was a playmaker and high hockey IQ. Well, he's realizing his path to the NHL includes getting a foot in the blue paint. And if he can continue this trajectory, this progression that he's shown over the last couple of games, over the last week, he's in. But that's easier said than done, because now the NHL players are going to play the last couple of games. You're going to see the NHL regulars in Buffalo on Wednesday, the Sabres NHL regulars. So we'll get a really good look at some of these Penguins young players like Bros and Kindle and down the line and Hallander, and how they handle the speed of the game, that it's going to take a step forward once again. I tend to think most of them will be just fine. Kindle's the one to, hasn't seen this before, and will, you'll know if Ben Kindle is going to make the team or not. If it's in doubt, he doesn't, because there are other deserving players. But if it's not in doubt, he certainly will. Let's talk about the defense now. In fact, for those of you on the podcast side, we are going to pause here, take a quick break, and be back after this.